Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the DS Show. I'm joined today by someone who I consider a pioneer, revolutionary in the AI space. Recently, we met about a month ago as we are customers of the software over at Sourcetable. I'm pleased to welcome my good friend, Eoin McMillan, founder of Sourcetable. Welcome to the show, Eoin.
Hi, nice to meet you all, and thank you for having me. We're excited to be here.
Yeah. Now, this will be kind of a new direction for our audience. We're kind of veering into the AI space with this conversation. Obviously, this will be the first time a lot of our audience gets to see you. So, if you want to please go ahead, introduce yourself, a little bit of background, what you were doing prior to Sourcetable, and what you're doing now.
Sure. Hi, my name's Owen. I'm the founder and CEO of Sourcetable. Sourcetable is a new kind of spreadsheet that is built to make you radically productive with AI. So whether you're an analyst or an operator or a data scientist or anyone who does work in spreadsheets, there's a good chance that AI can help you do better, faster work. So how did I get into this? Well, I particularly like spreadsheets because I see them as networked information systems. It's the operational hub of a business and also the analysis hub. And I had spent 14 years in startups across operational roles, managing business teams, and technical roles, building software. And ultimately, I was frustrated with the kind of data tooling inside spreadsheets for the modern information environment. It didn't feel that Excel or Google Sheets had really held the mantle for this always on, always interconnected live streaming data world. And my view was that Excel itself needed to be re-architected so we could build new kinds of experiences. And AI is a very good example of the kind of application experiences that can deliver a lot of value that is not possible if you're building to the old way of doing things. So that's a little bit about me. I spent the last 10 years in startups before the Sourcetable. Yeah.
Wonderful. Now, you have this idea for Sourcetable, kind of AI is coming into the mainstream these days. Where does someone like you, where do you even start with an idea like this? How did you even get into this?
I got into this in quite a runaround way. So I had a software consultancy, and we had been building a lot of tooling for companies. So there's a lot of data tooling, a lot of pipeline tooling. And then separately, I've been running these business teams at startups in product and marketing and SEO and that kind of thing. And so through that startup work, I was building my own custom tooling. And through the software consultancy, we were being paid to build this tooling. And so I had seen it personally and I had seen it professionally. And so I understood that there was a kind of latent demand for better spreadsheet software. And I actually didn't jump into this straight away. I was a bit reticent to go after Microsoft Excel. And so I spent a long time digging deeper and wondering why isn't this built the way it is? And ultimately concluded that the reason is because it's just very old software and it was built not for this networked world that we live in. Before Sourcetable, in a prior life, I had spent some time building a discovery engine for the internet. And so I played a lot around with Word2Vec. Is that my internet?
Yeah, I think we're back. Looks like we're good.
I'm switching to my phone. 1 second.
Okay, not a problem.
Personal experience building this kind of software. In a prior life, I had spent time playing with building a discovery engine for the internet. That had taught me a lot about machine learning. And then also my co-founder, Andrew, had a deep learning startup very early on. And so we both understood the power of this technology, the utility of the technology, the kind of curve that we were going on in terms of we were building towards a future that was coming, and clearly now it's here.
That's fascinating. Before I dive into kind of more of the technology side and more kind of product-oriented kind of discussion, I think if we kind of what I like to do is also kind of focus on individuals' kind of career journey and kind of what motivates them and what inspires you. So, on a personal note, taking this entrepreneurial journey, what has it meant to you, and why make the jump on this journey on a personal level?
guess I really enjoy building things, and I enjoy
Mm.
seeing people use products. And I also, on a personal level, feel that it's important to kind of add value to the world, do something meaningful. So I had a choice before I came here to go into international development, or to go to art school and take sculpture, or to pursue a career in the internet. And ultimately, I chose the internet because I felt that it was a very exciting time to be building into this technology. I really like networks, and I'll get into that. But I felt that the internet was the biggest lever for positive social change, and that it could be an instrument for a small team or individual person to have a lot of leverage over building useful things in the world. And so I tend to think of technology as definitely a net good, the internet as a massive net good, AI as another massive net good. And so anywhere you can add value to the network, the internet network, to people, you end up creating value in the world, and that is a good thing. In terms of entrepreneurship, I wasn't exposed to any entrepreneurs as a kid, really. I had been introduced to a friend in college who was introduced under the proviso that he was the only person in the university who liked the internet as much as me. And right in our final semester, he built an audio tour company. And I realized, oh, you can make the ideas that you have in your head, you can make those real. And so I moved over to San Francisco just to check things out. I did about 11 hackathons that year, got the bug of building things and shipping things and getting them into the hands of users. And yeah, it's pretty much all I've been doing ever since. And so I feel very lucky to have found this industry. It's both creative and dynamic, and it's a lot of hard work, but you get to see the results when people use your software.
And you mentioned, San Francisco. Obviously, that's been known as a tech hub for a very long time, Silicon Valley. Can you talk a little bit about just kind of the talent and networks, perhaps? Like social networks that you perhaps have been exposed to, and you find that that's helped you in your development and your personal journey?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I would consider myself a San Francisco maximalist. I
Mm.
think there are some things about this city that are irreplaceable. Optimism first among them. There seems to be an attitude in town among the people who live here that if there's a problem in the world, we can fix it, we can solve it, we can build that better world. And being around that optimism it's invigorating, intoxicating. It's really nice to be around optimistic people who believe they can build a better future, and they do, right? You meet people doing incredible things in kind of biotech and obviously information tech, and in space and satellites, and you name it. There's people kind of trying to build a better world, and the density of those people is really, really high here, more than anywhere else I have found, and I think probably anywhere in the world. So I've been fortunate enough to go to many other startup ecosystems. So I've been to London. I'm from Sydney, New York, there, and other places. There is no comparable to the Bay Area, and the reason for that is that we are in a network effects driven business. You've got these dense networks of talent that all live in the same place, which means we work together, we socialize together, you bump into people casually, and so over time, even without trying, you just build a network of people who are also builders. And there may be other industries. If you were in film, you might go to LA, finance, New York. But if you're interested in the internet, there is only one San Francisco. So by way of example, I think about half the venture capital in the United States is within an hour's walk of my house. And
Yeah.
this is clearly the biggest market in the world for it. And so the amount of innovation here is just many orders of magnitude more than you will find elsewhere, even in the next biggest markets. And it is difficult to internalize how important that is in terms of just staying on the cutting edge of both technology, but also culture, understanding where things are going. And obviously a lot of top talent moves here because they're also inspired. And so you just meet a lot of brilliant people, and you get to work with them. And I think everybody here gets excited by that.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect kind of backdrop before we kind of dive more into the cool things Sourcetable can do, and then the technology. I think that kind of sets the scene pretty well, like going into your personal side and where you're kind of positioned and based, and as we kind of transition now over into more of the technology. Can you talk a little bit about kind of where you started with Sourcetable, where it is today, and then what do you see in the future for Sourcetable?
Sure. So Sourcetable started in many senses in the same way that it is today. We had this vision that you could build a spreadsheet-based application platform. To do that, you needed to be able to build the interface as well as the data layer and have them all work together. Probably useful to just restate. Sourcetable is an AI spreadsheet. It is its own spreadsheet platform. It works like Excel, so it has all the same formulas and functions and charting and graphing and conditional formatting you might possibly want. It also connects to pretty much every data source you may need for your business, whether that is a database or an application. Maybe that's your ads tooling, your analytics tooling. And so you're able to get all of that into Sourcetable and just start asking questions of your data. So that might be simple analysis all the way through to operations and asking the spreadsheet to do your work for you. We're very excited about a future where humans pair with machines and they're collaborators, and the spreadsheet is doing a lot more of the load of doing the actual work, and the human is more sitting in a role of orchestrator, as planner, as surveyor, and in much more of a creative, fluid role, because as you may know, in the world of analysis, there's no limit to the number of questions you can ask, and so questions lead to questions, and so there's this kind of curve of enlightenment, which is very fun. So how do we get here with this AI spreadsheet called Sourcetable? Well, first we started off looking at how to build a spreadsheet. Spreadsheets are one of the hardest things you can build. They are non-trivial on a technology level. As a data structure, you need to make sure they're performant, they're low latency, that people are able to do their work. In the modern information environment, obviously, people have a lot more data today than they did in 1985. And so we do a lot of work to make sure that you can upload very large files to Sourcetable and work with those. So just by way of example, you can upload a 10 gigabit CSV file and work with that. That's not going to fit in other spreadsheets, and it's quite convoluted to try to do that in Power BI. And so you've got these primitives of storage and compute and the interface and AI, and you need them all to work together nicely. And you also need to make sure, for us, that you're building towards the future vision, which is we really like seeing spreadsheets as an application platform. We see Microsoft Excel and Google Sheets as some of the biggest hubs for third-party software on the internet. They rely on plugins and add-ins. We do not consider those to be native integrations. I'm sure you've played with plugins that are brittle and breaking all the time, and they don't play nicely together. And the reason for that is that there's no controller. There's nothing orchestrating everything. And so you need to build it like a proper software application stack. So yeah, we started off building spreadsheets. We had to get to watermark. One of the fun challenges about spreadsheets is the quality level has to be really, really high, because people have these very high expectations. And so a learning early on for me is that people think of visualizations, your charts and graphs, as part of a spreadsheet. In a technical definition, they are not. But when they think of a spreadsheet, they think of the entire software package. So first we had to build the whole watermark. We had to make it fully collaborative. I don't know how much you want me to get into the technical details of it, but we had to make it fully collaborative. We had to make it fast. We had to make it work with large data sets. We had to make everything buttery smooth. So, if you've ever used DAX in Power BI to be able to access the kind of interfaces with a GUI or writing other code, we just think all of that is far too much work. You can if you want to. If you want to get into the nitty gritty, you can open up a SQL editor and you can write SQL directly against the spreadsheet. But for most people, they want to drag and drop a file, they want to point and click, they want to start asking questions. And so it started with a very big infrastructure lift, and it has moved into more of a design phase. The design phase being, how do we continuously iterate on the experience to make this really, really, really good? And then obviously AI is a huge UX paradigm shift. And so that's a constant learning, which we're constantly iterating on and getting user feedback on. On the AI front, there's a number of interesting pieces to it. The first one, obviously, is you can delegate work to the computer, and just even scoping is a lot of work. Does the computer understand the context of what it is being asked? And Microsoft Excel, I think, does not do very well at this. And the reason I think is because they have to support 1 billion users. And so their speed and velocity of iteration is not as fast. Yeah, and so I'll give you an example. Right now, I spend a lot of time on the edge of what's possible. I spend a lot of time talking to my application software, to my database, to my applications like Google Analytics, and also talking to the spreadsheet. And I find that that is a UX paradigm that has arrived in terms of technical ability, but has not yet arrived in terms of user familiarity. And you get much better results from language models than you do. Kind of a long answer, but yeah, I've been doing this for a while, so it's all blurred into one. But yeah, no, I mean, I guess that was a big lift. Now we have users, and it's just playing the startup game.
Yeah, and I believe you guys recently kind of unveiled your next round of kind of advancements in the platform, right? And now you guys are kind of getting more and more
Yeah.
customers, and you're kind of building that customer base. I know when we connected, like I had discovered Sourcetable, I think almost kind of by happenstance, but I started using it, and I know one of the things that was immediately like apparent to me was I had uploaded a data set into the system, and I prompted it and asked a question, and just it gave me the answer. But then it also came back with, here's everything about your data set. Here's what I noticed some patterns are like in the data set. I was working with opportunity data, and it came back with like, here's how many open opportunities you have. Here's how many closed opportunities. Here's how many you've won. Here's how many, like it just like automatically came back with such in-depth analysis that I didn't even know I wanted. Then when it gave it to me, I was like, wow.
Yeah, I mean, AI is a very powerful collaborator, and obviously our team's done a lot of work to try to bring the intelligence forwards. And we look at this as a collaborative experience. We want the user, the human user, to be able to upload a file, start asking questions, and to be able to take this as a creative, exploratory path. The mission of the company was to make data accessible to everyone. And we find that kind of the exploration of knowledge through analysis often just keeps unfolding into more and more knowledge. I think it's very common for someone to upload a sales or a marketing report with a particular question and then to learn other insights along the way. And obviously that excites us whenever we're able to help. I think I probably underplayed a few things. So we had a world's first in terms of the autopilot feature that we launched. So we launched that back, I think, in January. And so that was where the spreadsheet can literally do your work for you. You ask it, hey, can you build me a financial model, or can you edit this thing, or can you look for something, and it'll just go around creating tabs and making models and editing formulas. And then since then, we've just really dialed up the intelligence and dialed up the coherence and spent a lot of time on the user experience aspects of when and how to surface information to users, so that way it's always kind of ready at hand but not too overwhelming.
Yeah, and I've found that it kind of lifts the burden away from me as the modeler or end user, that I don't have to be the one doing pivot tables and this, like all the kind of grunt work, right? I can just prompt it, it'll do it for me, and then I'm more so now focused on the trends and insights and analysis rather than doing the grunt work to get to that point.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a common framing is that people see Sourcetable and they look at it as an AI spreadsheet. Internally, we think of it as an AI analyst or an AI data scientist. And so we have this persona-based role where it is filling a role on your team. And so now everybody has, a data scientist accessible to them, and they can start asking questions, right? The reason this works under the hood is that we have a virtual machine that everybody is running. That's writing code all the time. We put a lot of work into making sure that everything that Sourcetable did was verifiable through code. Anything analysis-driven, math-driven, anything you can prove, kind of with a mathematical or code-driven proof, you can check the work of Sourcetable and make sure, hey, this is a non-hallucinatory answer. We know that it is real. We know how Sourcetable did the work. And so we wanted to make sure that for everything analysis-driven, that you could always rely on Sourcetable. There are some other pieces for this, in the sense that if you have a Python machine, it can also research for you. It can also scrape the web. It can also clean your data. It can do a lot of these tasks, because anything you could possibly ask a data scientist to do, we've included all of the tooling. And so whether it's like Python or SciPy or Matplotlib or Plotly or Bokeh, all of that is in the platform, accessible to the AI. And now we've abstracted the kind of technical knowledge away, and now the human user just has to ask for what they want. And all of the interpretation of how to do the thing, it moves from kind of a how to a what, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it certainly does. And it almost feels like I have like a personal assistant now with me that can work on spreadsheets. Right? It's almost like on my phone, I got Siri. Now on my spreadsheets, I have Sourcetable.
Dude, we quite strange. We noticed a lot of people using Sourcetable on mobile. We're improving that, but yeah, it's actually quite an experience. You can load your spreadsheet on your mobile phone or your database through Sourcetable and just start talking to it. And it's very normal to talk to your phone, but it's not very normal to talk to your desktop.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that's a kind of new experience, just like talking to Siri.
Yeah. It kind of brings your spreadsheet to life almost, right? Where it kind of adds that human element and conversational piece to it, right? Which is I think we had chatted offline a bit ago, but we were talking about just it's a language model, right? So that kind of human element comes out.
There's something quite magical watching the computer just do the work. It's a very new experience. Actually, it feels like the computer is more alive. Not to anthropomorphize, but yeah, it's very fun and creative. And actually, I think that joy might go away as people normalize this and get used to it. But for now, it's just magic. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, I think one of the kind of getting to some more fun questions, right, with the platforms. So, we've kind of talked a little bit about, it's kind of all the functionality that Sourcetable has. For the average person, I think you mentioned that can be like that data analyst on your team. What about like folks who are already like expert data analysts, right? Because I've seen, like, for example, people who are software engineers that use AI tools, and they can kind of take it to this even next level. And if you really know what you're doing, or like someone who's an advanced super user of spreadsheets or Python or any of these programs, like, what are some cool things you've seen people do? Or it might be yourself.
There's one I can't tell you about because we have a product launch coming in 2 weeks, but we've
Okay.
observed some new user behavior, which we're very, very excited about. I think what is interesting is that as people use the software, if they are on the more advanced spectrum, well, obviously they have a bigger vocabulary, right? They know what to ask for, and they understand, oh, I can drive the machine to do various things. You can also get it to do multi-step workflows. So it's not just a spreadsheet that people have access to in Sourcetable. That you have a Python-based virtual machine that can interconnect with the internet, right? And so I can tell you what I do, which is a very abnormal way of doing things. The first thing I'll do is I'll get up, I'll check the database, I'll see what users did in the system. And then I'll check the attribution of kind of what source did this user come from. And then I'll open Google Analytics inside Sourcetable, and I'll start talking to it saying, hey, I'm noticing an uptick in users that are coming from, for example, ChatGPT. Can you show me the plot curve of ChatGPT over the last 3 months as a percentage of traffic? And then I might say, okay, now that I'm seeing that, can you start breaking down the user retention of my LLM-driven users? So that would be ChatGPT, Perplexity, whatever. Group those all into one group, like AI attribution. And then I want you to compare those against direct users and SEO users, for example. And I want to understand things like day 1 retention, day 7 retention, weekly active use. And I want to be able to understand and compare these cohorts based on the lead generation source of these users. And so at this point, I'm starting to thread together the database, the analytics service, the spreadsheet itself, and I'm starting to ask these compound questions across multiple different services, and things start to get interesting. And that might uncover things like, oh, I'm noticing that a certain page is driving traffic. Okay, let's go back to analytics, pull me the sitemap for the web. So go to our website, scrape the sitemap, because I could get it from the code base, but I can just get Sourcetable to go to our website, scrape the sitemap, pull every single page related to that, then go through, pull me the title and description for every single one of these pages, then go through, check it 200, 404, and then I talk to it about analysis. Then I go, oh, okay, how could I optimize? Like, how is my click-through rate? What is my, if that is good, then I'm good. If it is not good, based on the analysis we've discussed, how could I optimize my title and description tags? Okay, go and rewrite that for me. And so I'm starting to thread together my database work, my analysis work, my operations work, my marketing work, and I'm just threading all of this together by just exploring what are the functions that are related. And so, this is me just going on a rant, but the experience is one of flow state. When you have all of these systems interconnected in one hub, and we very strongly believe the spreadsheet is the correct hub because it is the data-oriented interface that allows humans and machines, agents, to work together. It's very much a flow-driven experience. So that's the kind of stuff I do. You were asking about advanced use cases. I mean, there are hundreds of tools under the hood, some of which we deliberately expose to users, some of which just do work for you. Some of the fun ones is that Sourcetable is an AI system. So you've got many AI, machine learning and different algorithms. But one of them obviously is language-based models. Well, it turns out that language models are excellent at compressing and synthesizing information, which makes them excellent at keyword reports and research, whether that's for SEO or paid words in like performance marketing. And previously, what you might have to do is to do a keyword dump and then spend all this time writing pivots to start to kind of understand word association. And now you just kind of push a button or you say, hey, Sourcetable, can you blend all these topics together and do it for me? And it just does it. It's very crazy. And so when you get a language model, there are these inbuilt primitives out of the box, which is just like anything language-based, it is excellent at. And I think that the whole industry is still like, we think of it as AI, it can do all these things for you. But as a language model, there are some things it's just naturally excellent at. Obviously, keyword research is great. You can also do vector math. And so if you really want to go into the fun stuff, because you were asking about the advanced stuff, because it's a language model, you can do vector math. And so you can, for example, get Sourcetable to scrape your homepage or your page against a keyword topic. And you might be looking at kind of cosine similarities. And then you can scrape all the other pages that you're competing against and understand, what is the association, what is the math behind the pages that are outranking you versus the ones that you have. What do they not have that you don't have? Rewrite my page. And so once you kind of start chaining these things together, it gets pretty crazy. That's probably not what your listeners want, because I love SEO, so I get down this. In a data science sense, pretty much anything you could ask for from a data science perspective, you can do in Sourcetable. Sorry, I know this is a long answer, but we see people doing 3D blast wave modeling in the mining industry through visualizations. We see people doing fluorospectrometry analysis using the data science toolkit. I have no background in this, so I can't tell you too much more on that. We see people doing soil science and climate science and all sorts of advanced workflows, even though our bread and butter is, upload a sales report or a marketing report or a custom survey and ask questions. Most users are not on the most advanced spectrum, but you can. We're still internally learning all the things you can do with Sourcetable, which is an emergent property, which is fun.
Yeah, it sounds like Sourcetable is kind of at the leading forefront, cutting edge of the future of spreadsheets and AI.
Absolutely.
I guess one question that naturally comes to mind is, do you think Excel is still going to be around in this world? Do you see it as kind of complementary, or do you kind of see it as like, Sourcetable is going to kind of become the go-to? Where do you kind of position Sourcetable in comparison to like a Excel or Google Sheets?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we believe that the future of spreadsheets is Sourcetable, and more generally, the future of spreadsheets is spreadsheets. We think that spreadsheets, there are only so many common tools that people will use to get their work done. I think these are future-proof, independent of technology. These are Word documents, text message systems, social networks, spreadsheets, email in some form or another. And if you actually think about it, these all back down to the history of human knowledge and using spreadsheets or some primitive form of spreadsheet to coordinate civilization itself. We know that the first forms of writing back down into the table-based structure, and then your Word document very much still mimics the way you would use papyrus. And so we see the future as maintaining these interfaces for the human. It'll be more multimodal, it'll be more dynamic. There's going to be a lot more fun, interconnected stuff you can do. But the future of spreadsheets is spreadsheets. For Microsoft Excel specifically, they have over 1 billion users. I think between them and Google Sheets, it might be over 2 billion users. Clearly, they don't go away overnight. I think that what you're going to see is a complementary ecosystem, the same way that Google Sheets did not replace Excel. It filled a niche, right? So Microsoft Excel was the spreadsheet for the PC era. Google Sheets was the spreadsheet for the browser-based era, and Sourcetable is the spreadsheet for the AI era. And you still have these XLSX file standards, you still have interoperability. I certainly think on one angle we will perform better in the long run, which is actually enterprise. Working with enterprise permissioning systems inside Excel is not the most fun, and we know that people are still emailing around very sensitive documents, but that is a longer term play. In the short term, I think that we should be humble. We're building on the back of a lot of decades of technology and brilliant work by the Microsoft and Google teams, and we're kind of excited to carry the mantle.
Yeah, and that's quite fascinating. And you mentioned, you're excited to carry the mantle, and I certainly can appreciate the humility, and I think that sort of positions Sourcetable in a nice light, compared to where it fit in the future. When it comes to now, if we transition a little bit, kind of going less technical and more just again entrepreneurial side, you mentioned you have a team working on that. Can you talk a little bit about just your team, company culture? Like, what does the day look like for you? How it's kind of like how does your team work together? Like, take us a little bit behind the scenes.
Sure. I will get into the team, and I think this dovetails into your previous question about Excel, which is ultimately how do you compete against Microsoft Excel, probably the best known piece of business software of all time? Well, the answer is that as a startup, we're able to iterate and test new things really, really, really quickly. And so our velocity of experimentation and our velocity of pushing features and our velocity of pushing on the edge of AI gets to be much, much faster. And that is the advantage we have as a smaller company, is that we get to build all these autopilot things much sooner and faster and get feedback and incorporate that in. And so when it comes to a team, you need to have a very small, very capable team who is both extremely technical and also comfortable at a shipping cadence and experimental framework that is not normal. So dovetailing into your previous question, if you're competing against Microsoft Excel, the best known piece of business software of all time, you have one advantage as a startup, and that advantage is velocity. We get to build a lot faster, ship a lot faster, learn a lot faster, and ultimately go through these iterative cadences much, much, much faster than a large company. And that is our one single advantage, is that we can ship autopilot, test and learn well ahead of what a Microsoft or Google can do. And so what is the kind of team that can do this? Well, they need to be both extremely technical, like way, way, way up there on the technical end. Like I mentioned, spreadsheets are one of the hardest things you can build, and it only gets harder once you start pushing on the curve of innovation. But that team also needs to be comfortable with this messy process of innovation. Not everything you build is going to be a success. Not everything is going to work. The spec in terms of working with AI is a little more fuzzy, right? We don't know everything it can do. Some of the properties are emergent. And so when it comes to the team, we have a very small team. So we're 6 people total, which I think most people don't realize. And most people, so how do we select people and who works at the kind of company? Most people at the team have at least 15 years experience. Almost everyone is extremely, extremely senior. One person didn't finish high school, and so it is not a requirement to have a CS degree. It is not a requirement to have any formal credentials. But we do find that everybody who works on the team has done something particularly impressive in a past life. And so Andrew, the CTO, previously designed and developed the first quantum cryptograph in Australia, by way of example. And so the bar only goes up from there. We find that as an early stage team, you need to be able to do it all. It's not literally everything, but every engineer on the team needs to be able to do at least 2 things at a level of mastery. That might be front end and back end code. It might be back end and DevOps. Most people can do front end, back end, DevOps, as well as AI. And the reason for this is that you need to, if you only have a small team, everybody needs to be exceptional. They need to be very versatile. They need to be both broad and deep. And as you get to a larger company, there tends to be more specialization. But for right now, we very much focus on that kind of polyglot, brilliant kind of person. And so far, so good. Keeping the quality high is probably the most important thing in hiring, we find. Yeah, I mean, ultimately, your company is only as good as the team. And so we find that the most important thing is just finding the absolute best talent we can, giving them creative problems to work on, and going after it. Yeah, I think there's also a level of competition that our team enjoys. Everyone's pretty ambitious.
Yeah. Now, as a leader of a company, of a startup like this, can you talk a little bit just on the people management side? What are some things that you've learned along the way, and advice that you would give to any people leaders out there?
It's difficult to give advice because I'm going on my journey, and everybody's context is different, so to speak. And so I very much understand the context of my stage company, and I've worked at larger companies, but there is no 2 companies that are exactly alike, and there's no 2 cultures that are exactly alike. I certainly think that there are some things that standardize, though. Having an excellence in terms of the minimum bar for quality is non-negotiable. Good people bring good people. Great people bring great people, so to speak. And so that's kind of something you can't compromise on. To find that at an early stage startup is just a lot of work. And I don't think there's any getting around that. So one person I found on a technical forum who had a very good answer, another person we had worked with prior, another person came from a recruiting board. There is no consistency we have found in terms of lead source. It is just people need to be good. Our hiring process, essentially we need to have seen that someone has done something extremely impressive. They need to be able to show that they're one of the best at what they do, or they're already on a very strong trajectory. We always review code. So we're less into whiteboarding and more into trials. 2 weeks on the job to just see what you can do is very important. So bar for excellence, always true. Culture of shipping, we find, is really important. That tension I was speaking about before, where often the best engineers maybe don't want to ship something until it's completely ready, and you actually need to find the person who wants to constantly push on the shipping front as well. So culture shipping is very important. And then for us, just culturally, I mean, our internal values are not fully baked, but we say work hard, be nice. And so there's a bit of a vibe check as well. Like, do we want to work together for years at a time, spending every day together? That's an important quality, I think, because it's nice to enjoy working with your colleagues.
Yeah, now, I guess for the last question here, as we like to wrap up, but, obviously Sourcetable, you guys have come a long way, you personally as well in your journey. You have like a breakthrough moment where you kind of felt like, all right, this is kind of the moment we've been waiting for. This is like taking us to the next level in your journey. And can you talk about just kind of what that feeling is like?
I think there's been a couple of moments. There was GPT-3 when you knew this didn't work, but it would work. There was, I think it was 3.5 when it worked, but it was really slow. And then Grok came out with some inference chips, and we went to near real-time responses, and you were able to get the latency down to not exactly, but close to that 200 millisecond benchmark that you want for consumer software. And once you see that, it starts to become magical, and you start to stay in flow, and you start to be able to have a question and another question and another question. And that feeling of kind of friction-free software, that was probably a really big one. A second one is just the emergent properties, and it's not any singular moment. It is that we have spent a lot of time working on the core primitives of storage and compute and the interface, and giving the AI all the tools that it needs. But it turns out if you give AI hundreds of tools, it will recombine them in many unexpected ways. And then once you expose that to users, they will use them in unexpected ways. And so there's this constant journey of discovery and joy as people use Sourcetable for new use cases that maybe we hadn't thought of, because we started building this for like financial analysts, and they might be in science.
Yeah, I feel like we could kind of keep talking all day, just about AI, and I'm certainly enjoying the discussion. But as we kind of look to wrap things up, I think it's been great. Kind of going through your personal story, kind of the direction of Sourcetable, where you guys came from, where you guys are now, just kind of the incredible work your team is doing, and the culture of shipping that you've kind of put together, and just kind of being on the cutting edge of AI. I'm certainly, an advocate for Sourcetable as a user myself. And as we kind of look to wrap up here, is there any, last kind of parting words you'd like to say to the audience?
Yeah, there's two things. First, thanks very much for having us. If any of your listeners would like a free month, just send us an email and drop a line mentioning the show, and we'll hook you up with the free month on the software. It's quite cheap. It's only $20 a month anyway, so I think you'll get a lot of value out of it. The second thing which we're tracking is something called the Agentic Web. So we think of Sourcetable. We've spoken a lot about analysis, but we think of Sourcetable as the spreadsheet for both humans and machines. And we have built a home for agents, so to speak. And so we look at this as an explosive wave that we are just at the beginning of. And so the Agentic Web, Microsoft released a report last month with 2 million agents had been created on their system. And by 2028, they're expecting that number to be 1.3 billion. So that is a 1,000-fold increase over a less than 3-year period. Nothing grows that fast. That is faster than the internet. That is faster than mobile adoption. That is faster than Facebook. And so we are all entering a future of this agentic web, where you will have this fabric that sits on the internet, similar to the web of documents, but it's a web of machines that can kind of interpret information, receive information, process, and take action, and then have them all interconnected. We see that agentic web future as extremely exciting. And when you look at creativity and productivity, we're at the beginning of a new Cambrian explosion. And so that's what we're tracking. And if anyone else has thoughts or ideas, or wants to throw in what they would like inside Sourcetable, send us an email. We love feedback. So that's what we're thinking about.
What you're saying is essentially, instead of me prompting Sourcetable, there could be an agent doing it on my behalf, basically, in a way.
In a sense, that already happens, but yeah, you will see more of that. Our long-term vision is that we see the spreadsheet itself as the interface for data, and so obviously MCP is a big thing, and being able to allow machines to operate other machines. We think that our primitives make for an excellent home for agents to be able to do their work, kind of a spreadsheet and AWS combination. And ultimately the human understands, because it's a tool they know, it's the spreadsheet. But yeah, ultimately I think you're asking, will the agents be able to do the work? Yes, and we will be able to spend more time on creative endeavors in the world of, in our case, data and productivity.
All right, wonderful. Well, to the audience, definitely go check it out. I'm a big fan. Owen, where can people find you or reach out to you?
Sourcetable.com. That is our website. And for me personally, you can find me on LinkedIn or on Twitter. I'm MCEOIN.
All right, wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Owen, for coming on the show, and hope the audience has fun modeling and using Sourcetable.
Thanks for having me. This has been great. See ya.
All right, cheers.